Well, everybody, happy New Year's Eve. We've reached the end of 2024 and are hurtling towards 2025, but before we get there, let's talk about the best of the best that happened this year, the year 2024 in Flesh and Blood. It was a big year, 5-year anniversary for the game, 3 new sets, a bunch of new products that came out of nowhere, some really cool mechanics, and we're going to discuss my favorites and, in my opinion, the tops of all the different categories, starting with the best set released this year. Now, here's the thing. If we're just doing a list of things that I loved the best, in my opinion, the best set that released this year was Heavy Hitters. Heavy Hitters, in my opinion, had the best feel for any of the sets that released. It felt interactive. It encouraged engagement between players. It had so many different ways that you could engage with it. It functioned incredibly well as a single box format. You could just build within the set and play within the meta of the set. 6 heroes in the set means that you can literally just sit down to a tournament. Everyone can play just a hero from the set using only cards from that set. Totally worked. You could even play Ultimate Pit Fight within the set via draft, which was something that was done at the world premiere in Queenstown, which was incredible. But even beyond all of that, the set was fun, it was engaging, it felt balanced, no one felt too out of left field. KO was strong, Kasai was strong, Victor was strong, and then 3 other heroes existed as well. But either way you cut it, it was a fun set to play. So for me, it was the best set of 2024. Now, if you're out there and you're like, well, I think best means most powerful, well, then we have to give the nod to Zen the set. No, that's not true. It's not Zen the set. Part the Mist Veil in general, because that set is by far the most powerful set to come out in the past few years. All 3 heroes, Zen, Enigma, and Nu, are incredibly potent right out of the box. So if you're looking at this list from a pure power level, best means strongest, well, that's your ticket. But for my money, I am all about that Heavy Hitters. Now, keeping in that same vein, what is the best hero of 2024? And again, if we're talking power level, I think it can only be said that none other than Zen, Tamer of Purpose, is the most powerful, is the best hero that came out this year. He came out and he immediately broke the scene in half for a bit. It was him and everyone else was tamped down. He required the nerfs that came, and he was, I would say, a major contributor to the meta for the longest period of time. Of course, nowadays, you're looking at a hero like Enigma, who's gobbled up a massive amount of Living Legend points, but really, if we're talking about the best of the best heroes that came out, it was Zen this year. But if you want my favorite hero that came out this year, it's not Zen, it's Kasai of the Golden Sand. Kasai, I think, hits on every front from a design standpoint. She lets you do the warrior thing, swing your weapons. She gives you an alternative play pattern and win condition almost by creating these Centauri sellswords, being able to swing those into different matchups. You can play her controlling, you can play her aggressively, you can thread the line in a mid-range build, you can even play her Axis. I think she is the ultimate triumph of hero design this year, and it's not just because she's the quintessential pirate, but she is the quintessential pirate. I mean, literally, she fights people, creates gold, gets gold, and then she gets a crew around her. I mean, she's literally a pirate, but that's not because I didn't pick that because she's a pirate, but basically she is. No, it's because she hits on every front. She is, in my opinion, the high watermark for hero design this year, and kudos to LSS for putting her out there because she's incredible. Now, as far as the best card released this year is concerned, I think the credit has to go to Traverse the Universe. First of all, the art is top tier. I mean, this could hang on your wall. It probably should hang on your wall. It is that beautiful of a piece of art. And not only that, when you see it in cold foil, it feels like a collector's item. This is one of the best collector's pieces they have released this year, in my opinion. But past that, it's also like the most powerful head equipment because of what it does. The fact that it blocks for 2 and goes and gets you an inner chi for your, doesn't even matter what hero you're running, like it does, whatever mystic hero you want. The fact that you go get an inner chi and you get to do their thing is so incredibly, exceedingly powerful that this has to take the cake for best card released this year. Not just because it's a beautiful card, but it's also perhaps the most powerful card they released in one of the sets from this. Now, if I'm wrong, leave a comment down below. Tell me what card is better than this card. Is Traverse not the best card they've released? Is there a better one? You can always sound off in a comment below, of course. And of course, speaking of art, in my opinion, the best art, and it's so subjective because like all 3 of the sets this year had beautiful pieces of artwork. And what you enjoy in art is different from what someone else might enjoy visually, aesthetically speaking. But I think this one really takes the cake because it's quintessential Flesh and Blood. It represents everything the game is sort of built around, mechanically and otherwise, and that's inner chi. This depiction of inner chi is incredible. I mean, it literally, first of all, it's the resource, the energy symbol for the game. They depicted it in its purest form with the most beautiful coloring and illustration. But then when you actually get one of these Marvel inner chis in your hand, it looks like a piece of metal. The cold foiling is so well done on these cards that it looks like a completely different material than cardboard. It is shockingly good, and there is no game that has done it better than this. I think this is the standard bearer, the torch bearer for trading card game design. Name a better finishing on any card in any card game better, and I will buy one and I will ship it to me, like myself. That's weird sentence. I'll buy one and I'll ship it to myself. That doesn't make any sense. I'll buy one and I will compare them in a video because I think this has the most visual impact when you're holding it in your hand. This to me, and there's like a lot of options this year. I mean, there's some beautiful pieces of artwork. Are you kidding me? Like Aurora, right? Even Traverse, I just talked about it. But to me, there's nothing better than the inner chi Marvel, the backside of the card, which is just crazy to say. This is the most beautiful I think that they've released this year. Okay, now on to a best of that you might not have had on your bingo card. Best mechanic or best keyword that they've released this year. There were a lot of keywords. Of course, we had transcend as a keyword, and that on multiple occasions in Dev Talks was talked about by the developers as being the keyword that they were most passionate about the elegance of that keyword. But I actually think that there's a keyword that was more fun, more engaging, more enjoyable to experience the visceral reaction of, and that is none other than the clash keyword. This is such a simple idea. 2 players sit down at a table and play a card game, each taking turns and interacting with each other. Like, that's what Flesh and Blood is. It's 2 players sitting down and interacting with each other. It's a very interactive game. You can't just sit back and wait for your opponent to finish their turn so that you can play out your turn like you do in some other games. In this game, you react, you block, you attack, you make your decisions while they're making their decisions. And the quintessential version of that is clashing. Both players will interact with each other in this moment, revealing the top card of the deck, especially in like a limited format. This was such an enjoyable keyword to resolve because both players at that moment, unless you know what's on the top of your deck, both players in a limited setting are going, all right, here we go, and you both flip at the same time, and one of you goes, yeah, and the other person goes, oh, but both of you experienced that moment. It's like a die roll to decide the fate of, like a KO attack. Is it going to be higher? Is it going to be low? It's that moment, but both players get to experience it. This right here is the keyword style, or I guess the mechanic style that Flesh and Blood really just sort of accentuates. This is the point of the game. Interaction between 2 people at the same time and creating moments that continue to just kind of hold in your mind. Clash does that better than anything else this year, in my opinion. Now, we had a lot of products released this year. We had Armory decks, we had sets released, we had a ton of stuff. We had those Blitz decks collections released as well. But in my opinion, the best product that was released this year, not any of those, the First Strike Blitz decks, the Learn to Play decks, the First Strike decks are the best product they could have released this year. Like, Armory decks are great and probably even more useful to the wider player base, right? Because you can go and you can pick one of those up and you can play it at an Armory. Classic Constructed, the most hyped format, of course. But as far as a well-designed product that gets players in the door, there is nothing better than those First Strike decks for Flesh and Blood. They are peak design. They're so well designed that I am very happy to bring them to a gathering, to bring them to a family outing, and to just slam one on the table and one for myself and teach anyone how to play, because it has everything that you need in the product itself to learn every mechanic in the game. Of course, there's keywords, and those keywords are always going to be set dependent, and that's how trading card games works. But the core mechanics of Flesh and Blood can easily be taught in those products, which means you can go to any event, you bring those two products, and just slam them down and say, pick one, you'll learn how to play that hero, and you can teach someone how to play Flesh and Blood. I think these First Strike decks are so good, and I'm so glad that they released them. In fact, they were so good that they made me, I was so blown away by them. I was encouraged by that fact to create a whole new starter deck guide thing, video for Flesh and Blood in 2024. Like, that's how good they were. I made an entire video just because they released that product. It's so good. So in my opinion, the best product released this year in Flesh and Blood are the First Strike Blitz decks. It was a year full of surprises, starting back at the Celebrational and working their way all the way to the World Championship this year. But in my opinion, the biggest surprise of 2024 has to go down as the book bannings, right? Art of War getting banned, all of those crazy tomes getting removed from the game. This marked a monumental shift in the design style of Flesh and Blood, shifting away from free card draw, not free of course, but enhanced card draw and these big spike turns that Art of War and tomes really provided, and onto a more level playing field of these back and forth gameplay systems. And of course, this marked a big shift towards the end of the year, alongside of some of the changes that came with Zen. You know, those cards moving out and Bonds not being playable by him anymore. In my opinion, this was the biggest surprise, the biggest shock, is how many cards moved and the fundamental, monumental shift that Flesh and Blood took towards the end of 2024. And it's going to have impacts on the future of the game throughout the next year and probably 2 years. We're going to see cards that come out and heroes that come out that are going to benefit from these cards that were removed in the Living Legend format, but are going to play differently in the Classic Constructed format. Now, for good or for bad, that's up for you to decide. Acilio is a hero that I look at and go, that's a hero that was definitely affected by these right out the gate. Nevertheless, this is a monumental shift and clearly the biggest surprise of the year in Flesh and Blood. And finally, we had a slew of fantastic events this year in Flesh and Blood. It's the 5-year anniversary, so we get to celebrate 5 years of this game. There are not that many games that can say that. And not only that, there are not that many games that can say 5 years and growing. Oftentimes, card games say 5 years and, they've carved out a tiny niche and they're making their wind down approach. Maybe they're moving off, into the sunset. But Flesh and Blood is growing and continuing to stay strong in its niche in the trading card game industry as a highly competitive and competitively minded trading card game. But all that to say, 5 years in, what was the best event that was held? The best competitive event that occurred this year? Was it the World Championships? Was it a Pro Tour? What's your opinion on the subject? Before I tell you mine, leave a comment down below. What was your favorite event this year? And in my opinion, the best event that took place this year, the most exciting, the most shocking event, was the first Pro Tour that actually took place, Pro Tour LA. And perhaps one of the best trading card game finals and moments in the entirety of trading card games, in the history of card games. That game that played out, the finals of Pro Tour LA, should go down in history as one of the biggest moments in trading card games. One of the most beautiful moments of trading card games was at Pro Tour LA. So if you haven't watched the finals, I don't know, man, maybe go back and watch the finals. If you have watched it, go back and watch it again, because it is just poetry in cardboard. So that right there is my top moments and top cards, the best of 2024. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in a comment below. And of course, make the number go to another number, because that number is about to become a 3. Also, thank you so much to everyone that supported me on Patreon over the years. Patreon is going to go on hiatus, and I am shifting over to Metafy. So if you'd like to support the channel and become a supporter, a member of the Armada, support me over at metafy.gg. Link in the description. You're going to get guides and things all throughout the next year over there. We're going to do dedicated live streams, Q&A sessions, things like that over on Metafy. So if you'd like to support me, head on over to Metafy, link in the description. And of course, have a fantastic 2025. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.